The wedding day should have been my first warning sign. I remember standing in that church watching my son marry Sarah. Everyone said she looked like an angel in that white dress. I smiled so hard my face hurt. But there was this moment, just 5 seconds, when she looked at me while saying her vows. Her eyes were cold. Ice cold. I shook it off. Told myself I was being crazy. You're not losing a son, you're gaining a daughter. Everyone kept saying. I believed them. I wanted to believe them so badly. The reception was beautiful. Sarah even hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for raising such an amazing man." I cried happy tears. But here's what I didn't know then. That hug was the last genuine moment between us. Because 3 days after they got back from their honeymoon, everything changed. And I mean everything. What she said to me on that Tuesday morning made me realize this wasn't about adjusting to married life. This was war. It started with a text message I wasn't supposed to see. My son left his phone on my kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping. It lit up right in front of me. The message was from Sarah. "Your mom is already texting me about Sunday dinner. Can you please tell her we need space?" My heart dropped. Space? We'd had Sunday dinners for 23 years. Every single Sunday. When I asked my son about it later, he looked uncomfortable. "Mom," Sarah just thinks, "maybe we should start our own traditions." His voice was different, careful, like he was reading from a script Sarah had written. "But honey, you love pot roast Sundays," I said. He just shrugged. That shrug felt like a knife. This was the boy who used to call me 3 times a day. The boy who'd bring his laundry over even after he got his own apartment, just to spend time with me. Now he couldn't even look me in the eye. But the Sunday dinner thing? That was just the beginning of what she was planning. Within 2 months, I'd been cut out of 17 family moments. I started keeping track. Not because I'm petty, because I was going crazy thinking I'd imagined it all. Birthday dinner? Sarah's parents are hosting. Thanksgiving. We're doing it at Sarah's mom's house this year. Christmas morning? Sarah wants to start new traditions with just us. Even the small stuff disappeared. No more Thursday coffee dates with my son. No more quick calls to say goodnight. Radio silence unless I reached out first. And when I did, text messages took 3 days to get answered. Phone calls went to voicemail. I'd see them posting on Facebook, smiling, happy, living their best life. Just without me in it. My friends told me to give them space. They're newlyweds, everyone said. But this wasn't normal newlywed stuff. This felt intentional. Calculated. Like someone was erasing me one event at a time. Then came the moment that proved I wasn't imagining things. And it happened at a place I never expected. I ran into Sarah's best friend at Target. And she told me something that changed everything. Her name was Jessica. We'd met at the wedding. She seemed uncomfortable when she saw me. Like she wanted to hide behind the paper towel display. But I caught her. "Jessica, how are you?" I asked. She went pale. Actually pale. "Mrs. Peterson, I'm so sorry about everything," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "Sorry about what?" She looked around like Sarah might jump out from the cereal aisle. Then she leaned in close. "Sarah told us you were difficult. That you didn't approve of her. That you tried to ruin the wedding." I couldn't breathe. Difficult? Ruin the wedding? I'd paid for half of it. I'd stayed up until midnight making centerpieces. Jessica saw my face and touched my arm. I didn't believe her. Not completely. "You seem really nice." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "But Mrs. Peterson, she's been planning this since before the wedding." Planning what exactly? Jessica's next words made everything click into place. My daughter-in-law wasn't just pushing me away, she was replacing me. Jessica explained it all in that Target aisle. Sarah had a whole strategy. First, create distance between my son and me. Second, make me look like the bad guy to everyone in their circle. Third, position Sarah's mother as the good mom and the main grandmother. It was calculated. It was cold. It was working perfectly. "She told us her plan was to have kids within 2 years, Jessica whispered. "And she said, I'm sorry, but you should know, she said those kids would barely know you. That she'd make sure of it." I gripped my shopping cart so hard my knuckles turned white. My future grandchildren. She was going to keep my grandchildren from me. "Why?" I asked. My voice cracked. Why would she do this? Jessica looks sad. Control, I think. She wants my son all to herself. And she can't handle sharing him with you. That's when I knew this wasn't going to get better on its own. I had a choice: fade away quietly or fight for my son. I chose option 3, something she never saw coming. The day I decided to stop being the good mother-in-law was the day she went too far. It was my birthday, my 60th birthday. I planned a small family dinner, nothing fancy, just wanted my son there. I texted him 2 weeks in advance. Of course, Mom. We'll be there, he replied. I was so happy. I bought his favorite cake, made his favorite lasagna, set the table with Grandma's china. 6 o'clock came. No son. 6:30. Nothing. 7 o'clock I called. Voicemail. At 7:45 he finally texted. So sorry, Mom. Something came up with Sarah's family. Rain check. I sat there staring at that cold lasagna, at the cake with 60 candles I never lit, at 3 place settings for a dinner party of 1. Then I opened Facebook. There they were. At Sarah's parents' house. Big family gathering. My son laughing, holding Sarah's new baby niece. The caption: Family is everything, red heart. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in an angry way. In a clear way. I finally saw the truth. And that's when I remembered something my own mother told me before she passed. Advice I never thought I'd need. My mother warned me about women like Sarah 20 years ago. I was in my kitchen crying over that stupid lasagna when her words came flooding back. We'd been talking about family drama, some cousin's situation. Mom had said, "Sweetheart, there are some people who don't want to join a family. They want to dismantle it and rebuild it with themselves at the center." I laughed it off back then. But now I understood exactly what she meant. Sarah didn't want to be part of our family. She wanted to erase our family and create a new one. With her rules, her traditions, her mother as the matriarch. My mom had also said something else that night. Something I'd forgotten until that moment. But here's the thing about people like that. They overplay their hand. They get so confident in their control that they make mistakes. Big ones. You just have to be patient enough to see it happen. I dried my tears, threw away that lasagna, and decided to get strategic. Because if Sarah could play chess with my family, then so could I. And I was about to make a move she'd never expect. I started watching, really watching, and what I discovered was shocking. I'm not talking about stalking. I'm talking about paying attention. I joined the book club Sarah's mother ran. I became friendly with her sister. I started showing up to the same yoga class as her cousin. Not in a creepy way, just putting myself in orbit. And here's what I learned. I wasn't the first mother-in-law Sarah had destroyed. Her older brother's wife had the exact same complaints about Sarah. She turned Michael against his own family. His wife told me over coffee. Made everything about her parents, her rules, her way. There was a pattern. Playbook. Sarah did this to everyone who threatened her control. She'd even done it with her college roommate. Pushed her out when the roommate got too close to Sarah's boyfriend at the time. This wasn't personal. This was just who Sarah was. A controller. A manipulator. Someone who needed to be the center of every universe. Understanding this changed everything. Because once you see the pattern, you can predict the moves. And I was about to use that pattern against her in a way that would expose everything. Sarah's own mother became my secret weapon. Here's the twist nobody saw coming, including me. At that book club meeting, Sarah's mom, Patricia, pulled me aside. "Can we talk?" she asked. My guard went up. This was the woman replacing me in my son's life. But her face looked tired. Sad even. We went to her car. She cried. Actually cried. "I'm so sorry for what Sarah's doing to you," she said. "I've watched her do this her whole life, and I don't know how to stop it." Patricia explained that Sarah had cut out Patricia's own sister years ago. Made Patricia choose between her daughter and her sister. Patricia chose Sarah, and regretted it every day. "She's doing the same thing to you that she did to every person who loved someone she wanted to control," Patricia said. "And I'm tired of being her accomplice." That's when Patricia told me something incredible. Sarah was keeping secrets from my son. Big ones. About money. About her past. About things that would change everything. And Patricia was willing to help me expose it all, but we had to be smart about it. Sarah had a shopping addiction my son knew nothing about. Patricia showed me credit card statements, $17,000 in debt, all hidden from my son, designer bags, expensive jewelry, spa treatments that cost more than my mortgage. My son thought they were saving for a house. He'd been taking extra shifts, cutting back on everything. Meanwhile, Sarah was spending money like water. But here's the part that made my blood boil. She was using my son's good credit to do it. Cards in his name that he didn't know about. She's done this before, Patricia admitted. Her dad bailed her out twice. But we can't keep doing it. She needs to face consequences. Patricia had tried talking to Sarah. It ended in screaming and threats. She told me if I said anything to your son, she'd make sure I never saw her future kids, Patricia said, tears streaming down her face. And I believed her. Because that's exactly what she'd do. We sat in that car for 2 hours. Two mothers who'd both lost their children to the same manipulator. And we made a plan. But before we could execute it, Sarah made a mistake so big that it changed everything. She got pregnant. And suddenly everything accelerated. The announcement came via Facebook. Not a phone call to me. Not a private family moment. A public post with a cute photo and a caption about starting our little family. I was tagged in it like an afterthought. My son called me 3 hours after everyone else knew. Mom, did you see? He sounded happy but distant. Like he was reporting news, not sharing joy. Congratulations, honey, I managed. My future grandchild. The grandchild Sarah had promised to keep from me. We're really excited, he said. Then quieter. Sarah wants to wait a bit before having people visit. To adjust. Before I could respond, I heard Sarah in the background. Tell her we'll let her know when we're ready for visitors. Let her know. Like I was a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. Not the grandmother. Not his mother. A visitor who needed permission. That's when Patricia texted me. She's accelerating her timeline. We need to move. Now. Because Patricia had just discovered something about Sarah's pregnancy that my son absolutely needed to know. The baby wasn't due in 7 months. It was due in 5. Patricia found the real ultrasound report. Sarah had been pregnant before the wedding. Not by much, maybe 6 weeks. But enough that the math didn't add up with what she'd told my son. He thought they'd conceived on their honeymoon. This romantic story about their first night in Hawaii. Sarah had made a whole thing about it. But the ultrasound dates proved she was already pregnant at the wedding. Why would she lie about that? I asked Patricia. Because, Patricia said slowly, she wasn't sure it was his. My heart stopped. What? Patricia pulled out her phone. Showed me texts between Sarah and her ex-boyfriend. Messages from right before the wedding. Flirty messages. Messages that said, I miss you and we should talk. Patricia had found them on Sarah's old iPad when helping her move. The timeline was damning. Sarah had been with her ex-boyfriend 3 weeks before marrying my son. And now she was passing off a baby that might not even be his as their honeymoon miracle. We had proof. We had dates. But we needed one more thing before going to my son. I wasn't going to accuse my daughter-in-law of anything without being absolutely sure. Patricia and I spent 2 weeks gathering everything. Credit card statements. Text messages. The ultrasound with the real dates. Bank records showing money transfers to her ex, photos of her with him from social media. Some from after her engagement. We made copies of everything. Organized it all in a folder. We even consulted a lawyer, Patricia's friend, who told us this evidence would hold up if it ever came to court. But be prepared, the lawyer warned. Women like this don't go down quietly. She'll lie. She'll twist things. She'll make you both look crazy. I knew that. But I also knew my son deserved the truth. He deserved to know who he'd married. Who was carrying a baby that might not be his. He deserved to make his own choices with real information, not Sarah's carefully constructed lies. Patricia was scared. What if he hates us? She asked. What if he chooses her anyway? I took her hand. Then at least we told him the truth. And someday when it all falls apart, because it will, he'll know we tried to help. We picked a date to tell him. But 3 days before our meeting, Sarah did something that forced our hand. Sarah planned a gender reveal party. and deliberately didn't invite me. I found out about it from Facebook again. Pink confetti, balloons, Sarah's entire family there, her friends, even people I barely recognized. My son in the center of it all, smiling wide, holding a cake that said, "It's a girl." I wasn't there. I hadn't been told. My own granddaughter's gender reveal, and I learned about it through social media like a stranger. The comments made it worse. People writing, "Where's his mom?" Sarah responded to one. She couldn't make it red heart, a lie. Public lie that made me look like I didn't care. I called my son immediately. He didn't answer. Texted him. Why wasn't I invited? 3 hours later. Mom, it was a small thing. Last minute. Sarah wasn't feeling well, so we kept it tiny. The photos showed 30 people. 30. This wasn't an oversight. This was a message. Sarah was drawing a line in the sand. This baby is mine, not yours. Patricia called me that night. I can't watch this anymore, she said, voice shaking. We're telling him. Tomorrow. But we didn't have to wait until tomorrow, because my son showed up at my door that same night. He stood on my porch at 11 p.m., and I barely recognized my own son. He looked exhausted, beaten down, older than his 26 years. Mom, can I come in? His voice cracked. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where he'd done homework, eaten thousands of meals, told me about his first girlfriend. I don't know what's happening, he said finally. I feel like I'm losing my mind. He told me everything. Sarah's mood swings, her constant demands, the way she monitored his phone, how she'd convinced him to cut off his college friends because they didn't respect their marriage. The credit cards he'd discovered just that day, thousands in debt, he knew nothing about. She said it was for the baby. For necessities, he said. But Mom, I found receipts. Designer shoes. Expensive dinners with her friends. None of it was for the baby. He put his head in his hands. And there's something else. Something that's been bothering me. My heart pounded. What, honey? He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. The pregnancy timeline doesn't make sense. He'd figured out part of it on his own, but he had no idea how deep the lies went. I handed him the folder, and I watched my son's world shatter. His hands shook as he opened it. I watched him read through everything. The credit card statements, the texts with her ex, the real ultrasound dates. His face went from confusion to shock to something I'd never seen before. Devastation mixed with rage. How long have you known? He whispered. 2 weeks. Patricia and I were gathering everything to show you. He looked up sharply. Sarah's mom knows about this? She's the one who brought it to me. She couldn't watch Sarah destroy another family. He went through it all again. Slower this time. Reading every word. Checking every date. When he got to the text with the ex-boyfriend, a sound came out of him, part sob, part growl. She told me she loved me, that I was her everything, that this baby was our miracle. He slammed the folder shut. It was all a lie. Every single thing. I wanted to hug him, to tell him it would be okay. But I just sat there letting him process. After 10 minutes he spoke again. I need to ask her. Tonight. I tried to stop him, but he was already out the door, and I had no idea what Sarah would do when confronted. He called me at 2 a.m., and I'd never heard him sound so broken. She admitted it. His voice was hollow, empty. All of it. Most of it. The spending, she said it was stress relief. The ex-boyfriend. She said it didn't mean anything. But Mom. He took a shaky breath. She won't confirm if the baby is mine. My blood ran cold. What do you mean she won't confirm? She said, and I quote, "Does it really matter? You're my husband now. This is our baby regardless." I couldn't speak. The audacity. The cruelty. I asked her point blank, "Did you sleep with him before we got married?" And she just stared at me. Didn't say yes, didn't say no. Just said, "I'm not going to dignify that with an answer." He was crying now. Full sobs. She said if I don't drop this and trust her, she'll make sure I never see this baby. That she'll tell everyone I'm abusive. That I'm controlling. That I tried to manipulate her into admitting to something that never happened. I gripped the phone. Where are you now? Sitting in my car outside her parents' house. That's when I told him something that would change his entire approach to this nightmare. I'd been through a divorce myself. I knew exactly what Sarah was trying to do. Honey, listen to me very carefully, I said. Do not go back in there tonight. Do not text her. Do not engage with her at all right now. But Mom, she's baiting you. She wants you emotional. She wants you to do something she can use against you in court. That got his attention. Court. Yes, court. Because if that baby isn't yours, or if you decide to leave her, there's going to be a legal battle. And everything you do right now matters. I'd learned this the hard way with his father. How one angry text, one raised voice, one moment of losing control could be twisted into something it wasn't. Tomorrow morning you call a lawyer. A good one. You document everything, the credit cards, the debts, these texts, all of it. You get a paternity test ordered. And you do not let her manipulate you into backing down. He was quiet, processing. What if the baby is mine? He finally asked. Then you fight for custody. Because this woman has lied about everything else. Why would she tell the truth about being a good mother? What happened next would test everything I just told him to do. By 8 a.m. the next morning, Sarah had already made her move. She posted on Facebook. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you deepest. To everyone asking if everything is okay. I'm dealing with some family issues, but my baby and I are safe. That's all that matters. Red heart family issues. Like my son was the problem. Like he was some threat. The comments poured in. Stay strong, mama. You and baby first. Cut out the toxicity. My son was painted as the villain in 3 sentences. No details, just implications dark enough to make people assume the worst. Then came the text to him. Screenshots sent to me from his phone. I'm scared of you right now. I think I need space to protect myself and our baby. My therapist says I should consider a restraining order. Restraining order. For asking if the baby was his. For discovering her lies. She was building a narrative. Creating a paper trail that made him look dangerous and her look like a victim. It was calculated. It was brilliant. It was absolutely terrifying. But Sarah had forgotten one crucial thing. Patricia was still on our side. Patricia did something that week that probably saved my son's future. She went to Sarah's house, walked in with her own key, and recorded everything. I'm not saying it was legal. I'm not saying it was right. But when you're fighting someone who's already playing dirty, sometimes you have to get your hands messy too. Patricia found more evidence than we'd even imagined. A second phone, one my son didn't know about. Messages to the ex-boyfriend from after the wedding. I miss you. I made a mistake. Sent 2 weeks into the honeymoon. Photos of purchases Sarah had hidden. Receipts for hotels from dates when she told my son she was visiting her sister. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals, thousands of dollars unaccounted for. And most damning of all, a journal. Sarah kept a journal. In it, she'd written about her plan to trap a husband with money, to secure her future, to make sure she'd never have to work again. My son's name appeared exactly twice in 50 pages. The ex-boyfriend's name? 37 times. Patricia copied everything. Every photo, every text, every page of that journal. We gave it all to the lawyer, and what he told us made everything worth it. The lawyer looked at us and said, "We can annul the marriage." Annul. Not divorce, annul. Like it never happened. The fraud is clear, the lawyer explained. She entered the marriage under false pretenses. The debt she hid, the possible infidelity, the deception about the pregnancy timeline. It's textbook grounds for annulment. My son looked like he'd been given a life preserver while drowning. What about the baby? He asked. Court-ordered paternity test before anything else, the lawyer said. But here's the good part. With this evidence, we can likely get an emergency order forcing her to take one. She can't refuse without looking guilty. The lawyer spread out Patricia's evidence on his desk. This is enough to not only annul the marriage but to potentially sue for fraud. She used his credit. She lied about material facts. She's been planning to extort him from day one based on this journal. Patricia started crying. Relief tears. My daughter is going to hate me forever. The lawyer looked at her kindly. Your daughter needs professional help. And sometimes the most loving thing a mother can do is stop enabling the destruction. We filed the papers the next day, and Sarah's reaction was even worse than we'd imagined. She showed up at my house with 2 police officers. I was making coffee when I heard the pounding on my door. Opened it to find Sarah fake crying with 2 cops behind her. "That's her," Sarah said, pointing at me. "She's been harassing me, threatening me and my baby." The officers looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, is this true?" one asked me. "I haven't spoken to her in 3 weeks," I said calmly. "I have phone records that prove it." Sarah's face went red. "She's been turning my husband against me. She's trying to steal my baby. She broke into my house." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I've been sitting in my home minding my own business. But since you're here making accusations, you should know that there are legal proceedings starting. Here's my lawyer's card." I handed it to the officer. Sarah lunged forward. "You bitter old woman. You can't stand that he chose me over you." The officers had to physically hold her back. It was a performance. A show to create another incident report painting her as the victim. But this time it backfired. Because the officers saw right through her, and what they did next changed everything. The older cop pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. "Ma'am, off the record? I've seen this before," he said quietly. "Woman makes false claims to build a case. Usually in custody situations." He glanced at Sarah, who was now crying on my front lawn, phone out, probably posting about her traumatic experience. "You said there are legal proceedings," he asked. I nodded, explained briefly about the annulment filing, the paternity test request. His expression hardened. "Keep records of everything. Every time she shows up. Every call, every text, every social media post. People like her always overplay their hand." He gave me his card. "If she shows up here again, call me directly." After they left, Sarah screaming about how I'd turned the cops against her. I sat on my couch and shook. Not from fear. From vindication. People were finally seeing what I'd seen all along. My son called an hour later. "She told me you had her arrested." She lied. Again. The police have it on record that she showed up here making false accusations. He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm done, Mom. Completely done." But done meant we had to face the biggest question. Was that baby even his? The judge looked at Sarah and said 7 words that made her go pale. "You will submit to a paternity test." We were in court for the emergency hearing. Sarah's lawyer had argued that demanding a paternity test was harassment and emotional abuse. Our lawyer had presented the evidence, the text, the timeline, the ex-boyfriend, all of it. The judge, a woman in her 60s who'd probably seen every trick in the book, was not impressed with Sarah's performance. "Your client has demonstrated a pattern of deception," the judge said. "The timeline discrepancies alone warrant this test. The other evidence makes it mandatory." Sarah stood up. "Your Honor, I shouldn't have to prove." "Sit down," the judge said sharply. "You shouldn't have to prove your child's paternity to your husband? The man you married under potentially false pretenses? The man whose credit you destroyed." Sarah sat. Her lawyer whispered urgently to her. "The test will be administered within 1 week," the judge continued. "Results within 2. Until then, Mr. Peterson is not required to cohabit with the respondent or provide financial support beyond court-mandated minimums." My son exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. We had 2 weeks to wait. 2 weeks that felt like 2 years until we got the call. The lawyer called on a Tuesday morning, and his first words were, "Sit down." I was at my son's temporary apartment. He'd moved out of the house with Sarah. We'd been living in this awful limbo, waiting for the truth. My son put the phone on speaker. "The results are conclusive," the lawyer said. "Your son is not the biological father." The room spun. I reached for my son's hand. He was frozen. Absolutely frozen. "Are you certain?" he finally asked. 99.9% certain. "The child Sarah is carrying is not biologically yours." A sound came out of my son, half laugh, half sob. Relief mixed with grief. Because even though he'd suspected, part of him had hoped. Hoped he was wrong. Hoped that at least the baby was real, even if the marriage wasn't. "There's more," the lawyer said. Sarah apparently already knew. Her attorney had a different reaction to the results than we expected. They weren't surprised. Which means Sarah has likely known all along whose child she's carrying. The ex-boyfriend, I said. Most likely. And based on the timeline, she got pregnant right before your wedding, knew it might not be yours, and decided to trap you anyway. My son asked one question that broke my heart. Why did she choose me if she loved him? Patricia finally told us the truth about Sarah's ex, and why she'd really married my son. We met Patricia at a coffee shop the next day. She looked 10 years older than when this started. Sarah's ex-boyfriend is a musician, Patricia began. Handsome, charming, broke. He's been broke their entire on and off relationship. Clicked into place. My son has a steady job, I said. Exactly. Your son has a career stability, a good family savings. Everything Sarah wanted for her future. Patricia twisted her napkin. Sarah got pregnant by her ex, I think on purpose honestly, and panicked. He didn't want to be a father. Had no money to support a child. So she trapped my son, he finished. Patricia nodded, tears falling. She saw you as a solution. A good man who loved her, who'd take care of her and a baby without question, who'd give her the comfortable life she wanted. Did she ever love me? My son asked quietly. Patricia looked at him with such sadness. I think she loved the life you represented. But the person? No, sweetheart. I don't think she's capable of loving anyone but herself. That's when Sarah called, and what she said proved Patricia right. She tried to bargain with my son like he was a business transaction. The call came that evening. My son put it on speaker so I could witness it. Baby, we need to talk, Sarah said in her sweetest voice. The voice that had fooled us all once. There's nothing to talk about, Sarah. Don't be like that. So the baby isn't biologically yours, so what? You can still be her father. We can still be a family. I watched my son's jaw clench. A family built on lies? Oh, please. Every marriage has secrets. The important thing is we love each other. You don't love me, Sarah. You never did. Silence. Then her voice changed, cold, hard. The real Sarah. Fine. You want to play it this way? I'll make sure everyone knows you abandoned a pregnant woman. That you're a deadbeat who refused to step up. I'll ruin your reputation, your career, everything. Go ahead, my son said calmly. I have documentation of everything. The lies, the fraud, the paternity test. Every single thing. You think people will care about paperwork? She hissed. I'll tell them you abused me. That you're the reason I'm stressed and the baby's at risk. Sarah, my son interrupted. I've recorded this entire call. And my lawyer is going to love hearing you threaten to file false abuse claims. The line went dead. My son looked at me with eyes that had aged a lifetime in 6 months. Is it over? Not yet, I said. But we're winning. Because the next day, something happened that we never could have predicted. And it came from the last person we expected. Sarah's ex showed up at my son's apartment with tears in his eyes and a story to tell. His name was Derek. Tattoos, leather jacket, exactly what you'd picture. But his hands were shaking when my son opened the door. I'm sorry, man, Derek said immediately. I'm so sorry for all of this. We let him in cautiously. He sat on the edge of the couch like he might bolt any second. Sarah told me she was on birth control, he started. We hooked up right before your wedding. She said it meant nothing, that she was just scared of commitment. Then she ghosted me. He ran his hands through his hair. 2 months ago she called me drunk. Told me she was pregnant and it was mine. Asked if I'd run away with her. I said no, I can't even take care of myself. Why are you here? My son asked. Because she's been texting me for weeks. Begging me to lie for her. To say the baby isn't mine. To help her keep you trapped. Derek pulled out his phone. I have all the messages. Every single one. And I'll testify in court if you need me to. Why would you help me? My son asked. Derek looked him straight in the eye. Because what she's doing to you. She did to my brother 3 years ago. Ruined his whole life with lies. I won't let her do it again. With Derek's testimony, we finally had everything we needed. But the final courtroom showdown was still ahead. The annulment hearing lasted 4 hours, and I watched Sarah's entire facade crumble. She showed up in a maternity dress, playing the victim one last time. But our lawyer was ready. He presented everything. The credit card fraud, $17,000. The timeline discrepancies. The texts with Derek. The journal entries. Patricia's testimony about Sarah's history of manipulation. Derek's confession and phone records. Sarah's lawyer tried to object, to claim it was all circumstantial. But the judge had clearly had enough. Ms. Miller, the judge said, using Sarah's maiden name deliberately, you entered this marriage fraudulently. You deceived the petitioner about debts, fidelity, and the paternity of your child. This court finds clear grounds for annulment. Sarah started crying. Not sad tears, angry ones. This is because of his mother. She poisoned him against me. The judge gave her a sharp look. This is because of your own documented actions. The annulment is granted. Mr. Peterson has no legal or financial obligation to you or your child. My son grabbed my hand and squeezed hard. Additionally, the judge continued, I'm ordering you to repay the fraudulent credit card charges. And Ms. Miller? I suggest you seek counseling. We walked out of that courtroom free, but the story didn't end there. 6 months later, my son and I had Sunday dinner again, and I finally understood what this was all about. Sarah had the baby. A girl. She's with Derek now, trying to make it work. I saw it on Facebook. She's already complaining about his mother. My son is healing. Slowly. He's in therapy working through the betrayal. But he's smiling again. Laughing again. He came back to Sunday dinners without anyone forcing him. Mom, he said to me last week, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Don't apologize, I told him. She was good at what she did. But here's what I learned through all of this. Sometimes the enemy doesn't come with horns and a pitchfork. Sometimes she comes with a wedding dress and a smile. I learned that a mother's instinct is real. Even when everyone tells you you're wrong. I learned that fighting for your child doesn't stop when they become an adult. And I learned that some daughters-in-law don't want to join your family. They want to dismantle it. To every woman watching this who feels like she's losing her son to a manipulator, trust your gut. Document everything. And never ever stop fighting for the truth. Because in the end, the truth always wins. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment telling me your daughter-in-law story. You're not alone in this. And if you want to hear about what happened when Sarah tried to contact my son again last month, let me know and I'll tell that story next. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because trust me, you won't believe what she tried to pull. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're not crazy, you're not overreacting, and you deserve to be in your son's life. Stay strong, ladies.